Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Key Challenges Facing Healthcare Technology Professionals. My name is Jim Rushin, and I'll be hosting today's presentation and Q&A session. I know that some of you participating are not in the healthcare field. Don't worry, we're confident that you'll find the content both informative and applicable to almost every industry. The presentation today will be led by Joe Tenuta from Advocate Aurora Health, a 20,000 employee healthcare network based in Chicago. And as many of you may have read in recent months, their organization is in significant growth mode nationally. Joe is the Systems Director, Network Engineering and Telephony. He works closely with Advocate's senior leadership team to ensure that their communications infrastructure meets the constantly evolving needs of their system. Adding commentary to Joe's presentation will be my coworker, Kevin Orofino. Kevin is COIO's Vice President of Network Engineering and Operations. In this role, he works with a significant number of our customers to create solutions that solve a wide variety of their telephony challenges. And because of this experience, he'll be able to add a macro perspective to some of the specific issues that Joe will address. During their comments, our presenters will touch on a variety of topics that are pertinent to many organizations. These will include communication requirements like high availability voice, data, and security, consolidation challenges and opportunities driven by mergers and acquisitions, and then a case study into how Advocate has addressed these challenges. Before we turn this over to Joe, just a quick housekeeping note. After Joe and Kevin conclude their comments, we'll move on to the Q&A part of the webinar. At that time, you can ask any question you might have by entering your question into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and hitting send. We'll then reply to as many of these as time allows. We're now ready to begin Joe's presentation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Joe. Joe, it's all yours.
Thanks, Chip. I'm super excited to be here. So good morning to everyone who's participating. We don't get a ton of opportunities to share, technical wins, even when they provide economical value back to organizations. So it's been some time since I've presented some of the good work that the team has done here within the COIO confines, as well as within our Midwest presence for Advocate Healthcare. So I appreciate that. The challenge that I'm going to give it the best synopsis that I can of everything we've done. The challenge for us was providing secure, reliable, supportable voice communication services affordably, right? And this has been the better part of an 8-year journey. So while we may make it look simple, it took time, it took patience, and I'd like to think that we chose the right partner to help our organization get to where we are today. So I appreciate the opportunity to share some of those successes with everyone who's a part of the presentation today. Clay, can you advance the slide, please? So today, primarily, we'll talk about our migration from legacy services to SIP, some of the advancements that have been made available to us that we may have been, gun shy and unwilling to maybe make that leap and step into that technology realm. And we decided to do that some 8 years ago, and we'll share those successes with you guys. Next slide, Jim. So some of the business drivers that led our organization to think this through and come up with some new designs and how we provide that affordable, reliable, supportable communications platform. We wanted to have ultimate endpoint SIP integration. So that was with a VoIP PBX solution that at the time that we started, we had a single solution. Today we've grown and we no longer have a single solution. So it had to be operationally open so that we could integrate into multifaceted legacy systems, newer age systems, et cetera. Didn't matter what part of the region we were talking about. And from a security perspective, which is probably paramount and topmost in healthcare today. How do we provide encrypted, right? TLS, SRTP, security on our voice lines. In particular, I think that was being asked of us when there were several contact center and other transactional parts of our organization looking for that. From an additional security perspective, we wanted this solution to be extremely flexible. And oftentimes, no disrespect to the security folks that might be on the call, we had to make sure that front-ending a lot of this with an independent firewall, right? Whatever your flavor happens to be, doesn't slow that down. So embedded firewalls and the technology that we chose proved to be another big win for us and a right decision, and checkbox covered. We wanted to make sure that we leverage any SD-WAN opportunities that were out there. And then one of the other drivers was TDM trunk conversion. And I have a ton of, they're funny stories now, not so fun stories when they were happening. But, in my first 2-3 years when I joined Advocate Healthcare, I got called into many hospital presidents' office to say, what's it going to take to keep those voice lines up, right? They don't want to hear about wet cabling. They don't want to hear about the mean time to resolution taking multiple days, if not more, to restore services. So the TDM conversion was a big piece of it. From a flexibility perspective, we are getting more and more requests in the healthcare landscape to be able to take numbers and route them elsewhere. So for those of you that are familiar in healthcare, for large hospitals, we may leverage as many as 10, 20, 30,000 DIDs at one point in time. And sometimes our organization wants to pick those DIDs and point them somewhere else or use them to leverage, some type of a centralized effort, right? So complete call routing control, number portability, the ease of being able to move numbers around, whether they were COEO, an existing COEO, or some other vendor and business partner, we needed to have that additional flexibility to have a quicker mean time to market. Business continuity, disaster recovery. For those of you that have been doing this for a long, long time, you don't get that with traditional TDM, PRI trunking, and some of the older TDM solutions, right? So those are very key to us. Uptime, probably the biggest thing. Obviously for healthcare, I could see that in banking, as well, in other areas, campuses, where students might be at school, et cetera, et cetera. Clay, can you advance the slide, please? So some of the benefits that we're seeing, we self-support and scale this pretty much on our own at this point. So one of the advantages that I like about what we've built is there's little to no carrier involvement once it's completed. So the days of making sure your TSP has been filed with the government, making sure that CLAR is working so that if we do lose PRIs, we're able to quickly convert those and move those somewhere else. That just didn't work. No matter how well of a standard operating or a procedure or a method of procedure we built, it never worked. In fact, there were often times that we tested CLAR, 3 months later, we have an issue and CLAR didn't work. So again, me being brought to the principal's office on a regular basis needed to stop because it wasn't making me feel really, really warm and fuzzy. The ability to quickly add capacity, increase licensing and bandwidth, hard to do when you need to wait for, services to be established. Whereas in the centralized model that we built, you'll see that we built some capacity in there, and being able to route calls and change, at very short notice, and keep up with the flexibility has been paramount, lifesavers in a lot of ways. From an economic perspective, we had a very quick ROI. Now we went with a purchase, right? Where we were very keen on capitalizing some of this. Doesn't mean that the operational model doesn't work. It just didn't work for us. But we had a really quick ROI. In fact, we exceeded our ROI by 30%. So we returned it 30% faster than what I had projected. And there was at least a 25% savings in the telecommunication services that we replaced with SIP. Now, I will tell you this, tariffs have increased, pressures have increased since this was done in Illinois, and I'm seeing it in Wisconsin as an example. That number is probably even could potentially exceed 50%. Some of the tariffs that we're seeing that are being passed on to us in other markets, primarily Wisconsin, are probably 40 to 50% more expensive than they were just 2 years ago. So you can imagine the revenue advantages for us when we're able to get this implemented in some of the areas that we have it. One of the benefits, obviously the team that's going to work on this for you, the inventory cleanup, reducing unused services, all those identification of lines from a overall telecom inventory is amazing. Some of that you just shear and prune, very similar to any of the network work that you would do, where you realize we're just not using that circuit, et cetera. And then we talked before around least cost routing capabilities, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the use of FXO and FXS ports in some of the session border controllers that you'll see here in the drawings has been instrumental at us being able to thwart the TDM tariffs that we're starting to see quite quickly. And for those of you that work with, all the different, national carriers or even the regional carriers that are out there, they're coming pretty fast, and they're coming with solutions that offer many devices to be installed on site to convert. And what we are able to do is within one box, one session border controller, provide that level of redundancy and ability, again, within one box, as opposed to multi-layer, connectivity on site, where you could have multiple points of failure and take a SIP trunk, convert it to whatever the TDM source is that you need, whether that's an FXO port or an FXS port. That's a big win for us actually right now, more than what we had originally anticipated.